This summer, I was able to grow 75% of my own food in just 100 days, working only 10 hours a week. In this video, I'll show you the 10 steps I used to make this a reality, and then I'll show you how to access more info if you want to do this yourself. The first thing I did was establish my goals and figure out my limitations. My broad goal was that we would grow most of our own food in 100 days. That meant about 75%. So I sat down with my wife and we figured out what we want to grow and how much. Hey, what do you want to grow this year? You know, the usual. The stuff that we like when it's a season. But that wasn't enough. We needed to have some measurable goals. Okay, well, I was thinking we'd grow a year's worth of chicken. That's probably about 75 chickens for us. Oh, and let's plant seeds for the garden. Every 2 weeks, we'll plant what is this season, and maybe 1 tray per variety. So maybe 4 to 8 trays. That sound good? That sounds great. Then we had to identify our limitations. For me, it was lack of time. I had to accomplish this in less than 10 hours a week. So our systems had to be easy to maintain and pretty much work for themselves. That led me to step number 2, creating a design. I knew that I would need to incorporate chickens into almost every aspect of my gardening. I would need to move the chickens to future garden areas to prep, till, and fertilize, debug. I would have plants growing in the greenhouse for the garden while the chickens prep that very garden those plants were gonna go into. Once the chickens were done, I would move them out and plant my transplants. And I wrote it out and mapped it out so that I could do 5 gardens this way. Once the chickens were done with one area, I'd just move them on to the next, and we'd just keep going around the house, essentially. I finished planting, I made the design, now it was time to get to work. The third step in my process was to put the chickens in the future garden area. Yes, sir, you preach it, buddy. Here they are, working hard, tilling, fertilizing, debugging, chickens in action. And most of the day, I'm doing what I need to do on the farm or inside the house. Thank you very much, chickens. The fourth step was I needed a greenhouse. So I thought I needed a nice greenhouse. So I bought this like Elliott Coleman kit, went to the store, got all the supplies, ended up spending about $2,000, and then realized I needed to hurry up. Spring was upon us. I better put something together really quick. I put this thing together. I slapped together this greenhouse in half of a day. Check it out. It's a simple design. Just some scrap windows we had in the old barn that could be found for free on Craigslist. Some scrap plastic. Actually, an old A-frame truss we rescued from a construction dumpster. Just slap together some wood, put it over the metal sawhorses. That's actually the only thing I bought. Bought the metal sawhorses so the mice couldn't get up here and get on these things. The greenhouse ended up working so well, I forgot all about the expensive greenhouse. I must have $100 invested in this thing, and it's been just fine all season long. The next thing I did for step number 5 was create soil blocks to have a planting medium for my seeds. Early on, our plants crashed in the garden. I pretty much thought they were gonna die. My beautiful one, the wife, she looked up some research, figured out some amendments we could add. We stirred it in, and we then realized we're gonna have to add amendments to the soil. It's not as great as we thought. Let's do this with the chickens before we plant. So before we move the chickens out and plant the garden, we added some soil amendments according to the recommendations of a local organic gardening expert. Instead of us having to till that in, the chickens will do it, just naturally. The next thing I did was broad fork. See, chickens only till on the surface, but we want to go deep down and aerate and bring in some water and more oxygen. So that's where this comes in, and it doesn't even harm the soil. After I broad fork and add any amendments I need, now's the time, if it needs it, to add mulch. You can see here, we've only got a thin layer of mulch. So best practice is to dump some mulch in here before they leave so that they can spread it out for you, and then you're good. That keeps the soil moist, that keeps the soil covered. Mother Nature doesn't like to be bare naked. She's very modest. Keep her covered. After the chickens were done with their garden job, about 4 to 8 weeks, I'd move on to step number 7, which was move them out and transplant my plants. for extra insurance, I'd add vermicomposting on top of the plants and water. And this, my friend, is what the garden can look like after the transplants have grown up a little bit. See what's going on here? Huge Swiss chard. Amazing lettuce. Sure, there's some weeds going up, but who cares? The transplant had the head start. My 8th step was maintaining the transplant when needed. I didn't need it for most of my garden area. This area, the soil is being built up a little bit more. It was more of a bug season. So for bugs, I used a natural soap, Shackley Basic H. And to boost its fertility, I just peed in a bucket, diluted it with water, and poured it on them. And you can see they're doing great. And I don't even know if it's rained since these guys started. I think it might have rained once. Now, for what it's all about, it was time to eat. Step number 9. But we had to change our mentality. We had to go from, hey, what do I want to eat this week, to what do I want to eat from the garden this week? Let me show you an example. If this is what's in season, what can we eat here, guys? Ooh, look, there's some spinach. That could go good for a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. There's some lettuce. That could be good in all kinds of different variety of lunch and dinner. There's Swiss chard, amazing with fried eggs. I think that's what we'll have this morning. And you just harvest it around the edges and more will come back. Pretty soon we'll have a broccoli on this plant. Down here we've got some kale that goes great with lunches and dinners. So you see today for breakfast, I've got chicken so I could have eggs and maybe some Swiss chard to the side. For lunch, I could have a nice salad. Since we grew chicken meat, maybe we could have a salad with some chicken meat in it. And then for dinner, maybe we have a roasted chicken. Maybe we could do some of that kale. We've got the broccoli coming on soon. There's a lot of different possibilities. You saw what I unloaded on the porch this morning. There's all different kinds of squashes, and maybe for dessert, we could have a pumpkin pie. Let's grab this up for this morning's breakfast. Ooh. You chickens work the garden and give food? That's just cray-cray. Why in the world isn't everybody doing this? Now, let's go eat. The last step, step number 10, dealing with the abundance. We grow a lot of extra for the chickens. We give some away. You could sell it, you can freeze it, you could can it. We particularly like dehydrating it. Mom's got some tomatoes she dehydrated, just straight up, just sliced them. That's amazing. She also makes a wonderful tomato leather that she just dies for. Show them, honey. Show them how much you love this. You're supposed to go, mmm. Wonderful, right? And it would last just in a plastic bag all winter long.
I made this at the end of August.
Yeah?
And it's almost the end of September.
Awesome. Those are the 10 steps I use to grow most of my own food in 100 days, working just less than 10 hours a week. You want to do that yourself? Cool. I've created an amazing resource just for you. I'll leave the link for it in the description. It's step by step how you can apply each of those 10 steps in your situation. Best of all, it's free. Go check it out. I'll see you on the other side.